The first letter called their children young blood. The second knew which bedrooms they slept in. By the time the third letter arrived, they were too afraid to stay another night. If you moved into your dream home and the house started writing to you, would you still call it home? The year was 2014, Westfield, New Jersey. Derek and Maria Broaddus had just closed on 657 Boulevard, a 6-bedroom colonial nestled in an upscale, quiet neighborhood. It was meant to be their forever home. But the house had other plans. Just days after moving in, a letter appeared in their mailbox. No return address, no postmark, just one ominous greeting. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard. Can a house have a memory? Can it hold a grudge? The first letter arrived 3 days after the Broaddus family closed on the house. It was a warm evening in early June. Derek had spent the day painting walls, patching up corners, preparing the home for his wife Maria and their 3 children. The sun was beginning to set, casting long golden shadows through the trees lining 657 Boulevard. The house, grand, elegant, perfect on the outside, sat quietly, basking in the suburban calm of Westfield, New Jersey. He stepped out to check the mailbox. Inside was a single envelope, thick, cream-colored, no stamp, no return address. Just a name, handwritten in heavy black ink across the front. To the new owner of 657 Boulevard. At first, he thought it was a welcome note, maybe a kind neighbor. But the moment he opened it, the tone shifted from neighborly to unnerving. The letter began formally, but strangely personal. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, the writer went on, speaking of the house as if it were a living thing. They praised its bones, its history, its past, and then hinted at something much darker beneath the polished surface. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. I have been put in charge of watching it and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. The handwriting sloped downward, like the ink itself was pulled by something heavy. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls? Derek felt the hair on his arm stand up. Then came the part that made his stomach turn to ice. I see you've already begun renovations. You've changed it. And that's okay. For now. But be careful. You don't want to wake what sleeps beneath. He stopped reading for a moment. He looked around. The street was quiet. Not a single car passed by. But suddenly he felt watched, as if every window on the block had a pair of eyes behind it. He kept reading. You have children. I've seen them. So young, so tender. I asked the house to bring me young blood, and it has. You have filled it with life again. Congratulations, Derek dropped the letter. It landed on the sidewalk, face up, those final lines staring back at him like a curse. That night, he didn't tell Maria. Not yet. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone was just trying to scare them off. But then, the second letter came. And it was worse. It arrived only 2 days later, inside another unmarked envelope. This time, the writer mentioned things no stranger should know. The bedroom on the second floor, the one with the 2 front-facing windows. That's where the children sleep, isn't it? Who's in the one with the bay window? Is that where you and your wife will lie? Or is it for the youngest, the one with the curly hair? Maria found this letter. She read it 3 times. Then she locked every door and called the police. Who would know those details? They hadn't spoken to the neighbors. The children hadn't started school. No photos were shared, no tours, no introductions. But the watcher knew. Have they started playing in the basement yet? The letter continued. It's so cold down there. Too cold for a young child to play alone. But who am I to stop them? I will be patient. I will wait. I am pleased to know your names now, and the names of the young blood you have brought me." The police took the letter seriously. They launched an investigation, but there were no fingerprints, no surveillance footage, and no signs of forced entry. No one saw anything. No one knew anything. And yet, someone was watching. Every detail in those letters was correct, down to the smallest habits, when lights were turned off, when trash was taken out, how often Derek stayed late at the house. It was as if the walls were listening. Would you keep going if a stranger described your children's bedrooms before they'd ever set foot inside? Would you finish unpacking the boxes? Or run? The police officer who took the Broaddus family's first report was calm, almost skeptical at first. He flipped through the letter with a neutral expression, then read it again, slower. By the time he reached the end, his fingers tightened around the page. "Young blood. The basement is too cold. I know which room you sleep in." He glanced up at Derek and Maria and asked the first question that would haunt them for months. "Is there anyone who might want to scare you away from this house?" They didn't have an answer. No enemies, no debts, no family feuds. They'd only just arrived. Westfield was supposed to be peaceful. Tree-lined streets, A-rated schools, the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbor and every porch has a welcome mat. But suddenly, every porch felt suspicious, every window a potential vantage point, every friendly wave from across the street a mask. Police began canvassing the neighborhood. They asked questions, quietly. But in a town where everyone talks, no one was saying much. That was the first red flag. Derek and Maria started their own investigation. They installed cameras, changed locks, stopped sleeping at the house entirely. Derek spent nights alone there, watching, waiting, listening for any sound out of place. And the house answered. Some nights he'd hear footsteps in the attic, scraping, pacing. But when he'd climb the narrow stairs, flashlight in hand, the space would be empty and freezing cold. They hired a private investigator, a man who'd worked with missing persons and mob cases. He ran background checks on every neighbor within a few hundred feet. Nothing. No criminal records, no violent histories, no known grudges. Everyone was normal, on paper. But it wasn't the paper they were afraid of. It was the feeling, thick and inescapable, that someone was always there. The letters continued. They became more specific, more aggressive. One arrived just after Christmas. 657. Boulevard is turning on me. It is coming alive. It is crying out to the young blood I have asked for. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found what is in the walls yet? That line. Have you found what's in the walls? It clung to them like mildew. They had contractors inspect everything, ripped open sheetrock, checked crawl spaces, opened vents. But there was nothing. No microphones, no cameras, no secret passageways. And yet, the house knew things. It whispered things. They consulted a forensic linguist, an expert in analyzing anonymous letters. He examined the grammar, the cadence, the word choice. This person is intelligent, he told them. Educated, probably older, and very, very angry. Why angry? Derek asked. The expert looked at him and replied, because you moved into their obsession. Then there was the old woman down the street, rumored to feed squirrels and stare at the house for hours. The recluse 2 blocks over, who'd lost a bidding war for the home. The family next door, who had lived in Westfield for generations and never once introduced themselves. Suspicions piled like snowdrifts and melted just as fast. No one could be tied to the letters. And all the while, the watcher remained unseen, but never silent. Would you start suspecting your neighbors? Would you trust anyone, knowing someone nearby knows the color of your children's bedsheets? Or would you do what Derek started doing? Watching the Watcher. The Broadduses never moved in. The house sat in eerie silence, fully furnished, but empty. Letters kept coming. I pass by many times a day. I watch and wait for the day the young blood will be mine again. Even renting the house out became difficult. Tenants received letters too. The Watcher was still watching. Would you keep the lights off if you knew someone was watching the windows? After 5 years of fear and financial loss, the Broaddus family finally sold the house at a significant loss. The Watcher was never identified. No charges, no confession, just silence. But some say the letters never truly stopped. If your house started writing you letters, would you write back? Today, 657 Boulevard still stands, painted, landscaped, lived in. But no one truly knows who or what was watching the Broaddus family, or how they knew so much. Maybe it was a neighbor, maybe a stalker, or maybe the house remembers, and it's just waiting for the next family to move in. So tell me, would you spend a single night at 657 Boulevard? Or would you leave the letter unopened and never return? If stories like this keep you up at night, you're not alone. We tell real horror stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. If you're brave enough, subscribe. Just don't forget to check the mailbox.